All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy to be here in Sydney. My name is T.R. Bosworth. I'm a product manager for CCA, OpenStack Cloud. And this is Mark Darnell, my sidekick. He's also a product manager on CCA OpenStack Cloud. So our session today is going to be talking about systems-defined infrastructure, DevOps, and containers. Basically, how OpenStack has this, all the bases covered for this. So we took some nice pictures so you knew who we are. Let's talk about a little bit about some of the research we've done at CCA. We did we worked with Forrester to do some research with our customers, a couple of our very biggest customers. And this is kind of interesting because it's putting together what our customers are thinking about OpenStack, which they see that the flexibility, lower cost, agility are the really key things that they find valuable. Also, they view the whole software-defined infrastructure as a key future for OpenStack in general, and that's one of the biggest value propositions. So when we look at, we also did the same kind of research with these customers around containers, and you can see that roughly 70% of the customers are planning to implement or have implemented containers in production. And so one of the areas that they have seen challenges in is in the area of storage and security, and also skills. And so it's very interesting that these areas are really the strengths of OpenStack. So it's a perfect marriage of taking and deploying new workloads with microservices on containers and having OpenStack actually do the hosting and providing the infrastructure for container deployments. So we're going to talk a bit about that. We're going to do a little bit of role playing as far as what the various questions that you typically have in a deployment. So I'm the operations guy, and Mark is the OpenStack guy. And so I'm, kind of wondering what's so great about software-defined infrastructure and OpenStack? What can OpenStack do for me as an operator?
Let's go ahead and pop to the next slide, and I think we'll see a vision which shows a lot of that. So within the software-defined infrastructure, what you see is a migration from physical assets over into basically commodity hardware with OpenStack and other pieces of software inside of that allow you to do a full software-defined infrastructure. Let's take three particular pieces. So for example, TR, as an application developer, are there particular platforms that you're targeting from a processor perspective?
Yeah, I mean, we're thinking about using Cloud Foundry, and we want to basically drive out microservices very quickly for mobile devices and just edge computing as well. Can you help out with that?
All right, so from a particular CPU perspective, though, is there something that you may be looking for? Are you all Intel? Might you be looking for edge computing, say something that might be a lower power device, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, typically we're Intel-based, but we're interested in ARM computing as well.
Okay. So from a hypervisor perspective, the ability to actually support different types of processors is pretty key. A lot of the straight commercial virtualization solutions that you'll find will be set on one processor architecture. And OpenStack has that ability to really run across multiples and manage them using one control plane. So that's what you see on the hypervisor perspective. From a storage perspective, do you have like legacy storage hardware within your environment?
Oh, absolutely. We have traditional SAN arrays, but we also have Ceph storage as well.
All right. So the ability to manage both of those via a unified API with Cinder, Swift, Manila, all of that via software-defined storage is key to being able to replace that second piece of what I would consider to be a legacy architecture. And then obviously the third piece, top-of-rack switches, whether you're using, say, a core aggregate edge or if you're using a leaf spine architecture, you've got physical hardware that is a high dollar cost architecture that requires multiple skills. You may actually have multiple switch vendors within your network, and you'll have either silos that form within your networking group where this vendor's better or that vendor's better, or they've each become experts on a particular CLI. The fact that you can now learn one particular technology in an SDN environment, like a Neutron, and be able to program and push policy out to your entire network without having to know the individual CLIs of those devices is pretty critical to the full vision of implementing that SDI architecture.
Cool. So, right now containers are really hot. Everybody, it's their new shiny thing. Everybody's interested. So here's some interesting facts that came from Forrester, talking about just pretty much container technologies that are in every public and private cloud platform. The growth pattern is very fast, still growing through 2017. It's really critical to digital businesses to be able to deploy containers effectively, and it's really one of the things that's making apps and services and microservices grow very quickly. So this is kind of like news, not any new news to anybody here, but this is something that's why it's a hot topic. And so let's transition in and have another question. I'm a developer guy. I just want to write code. What do I need OpenStack for with my container deployment? Can I just fire up some containers and that's good enough?
So it's an excellent question, TR. Has anyone in your development group actually tried deploying Kubernetes in order to set something up, say, as a black ops or kind of a prototype environment without coming to IT first?
Yeah, it's kind of a pain. It takes a little bit to get it going. It was kind of some new skills that we didn't quite have. We were good at putting together microservices and applications, but getting the orchestration was a little bit of a learning curve. So you have something that can help me?
Yeah, I would argue that initially some of the OpenStack learning curve was pretty similar to what you see in the Kubernetes space. Difficult to install, difficult to get going, steep learning curve. OpenStack with Magnum obviously has the ability to integrate and deploy multiple Kubernetes clusters straight out of OpenStack. And the question becomes, what does that actually sit on? Realize, regardless of what kind of is going on with SDI, at the bottom layer you still have hardware that has to underpin all of this. So the question becomes, what does that hardware look like, and do you have a high overhead deployment architecture that your IT organization needs to support? OpenStack, because of that software-defined infrastructure, that IaaS, gives you the ability to deploy Kubernetes, say, in a virtualized environment, say in a virtual machine instance, sitting on top of some of the compute plane. That's one option that you've got. With Ironic, you can deploy that Kubernetes cluster straight onto a bare metal node if you want straight bare metal deployment. If you look up at the top, and I don't recall if it's this slide, it may be a future slide that we've got showing up. We have a product called Cloud Application Platform, CASP, or Containers as a Service.
Containers as a Service
is the one that I'm headed for right here. So with our CASP product, that can actually also run down inside of an OpenStack instance, or it could be deployed bare metal as well and managed by OpenStack. It gives you a lot of flexible, different deployments that you can run with. So that's our CASP. We'll speak to CAP a little bit down the road on this, but yes, absolutely, in terms of deploying multiple Kubernetes clusters in a flexible mode, not requiring a huge amount of expertise from the developer side of the house, and leveraging all the infrastructure that we've set up with OpenStack. All of those things accrue with this software-defined infrastructure that we have.
So what about, let's say I need, I don't know, a Kubernetes cluster for development, and I need one for testing, I need one, does it help me anything to do with multi-tenancy? What about that?
Absolutely. So the ability to put multiple clusters out there, and actually these different deployment targets of potentially one in a virtual machine instance for, generally you don't want to deploy or dedicate the amount of hardware that you might have for production in your test or your dev environments, or you may kind of scale them up where dev tends to be more tight and efficient, and as you go into production you scale into full bare metal performance. It has the ability basically to set the different deployment targets and come at it from the same approach from development. So it's not a different learning lesson each time you deploy it. It's the same mechanism to deploy, but different performance capabilities and multiple side by side in the same cloud.
Wow, that's cool. So I assume since it's OpenStack, it could be self-service, right?
Absolutely. You could stick a CMP on top of this, or with our CAS product, we have a self-service user interface that goes with that as well.
Cool. So, what are we going to do next? What about bare metal and containers? I mean, that's the typical thing that people want to do is run their containers directly on bare metal. It's the best performer. I mean, what can OpenStack do?
Right. So I probably jumped the gun in the prior explanation. I basically ran through that full soup to nuts of what you can deploy. One of those obviously is a bare metal performance that gives you nothing between in terms of any virtualization overhead, but still all managed by OpenStack, network functionality under the board, software-defined storage underneath, and so forth. It really is a full breadth and depth capability.
Cool. So what about platform as a service? How does OpenStack fit in with platform as a service? What do you think a typical use case would look like?
So I'm going to jump straight to a product that we are announcing at this summit, which is SUSE's cloud application platform. This is open source based, so Cloud Foundry is the core of that. That can run in a bare metal or a containerization environment, which that can then run inside our OpenStack product. So basically you get a full IaaS up through PaaS all within one managed cloud. I urge you to swing by our booth and take a look at that. We're pretty proud of that. We think it's the wave.
So can this run on OpenStack as well?
Absolutely. One of the deployment architectures is inside OpenStack.
Okay, so literally we could have another bar at the bottom and OpenStack could be here and you could deploy your Cloud Foundry up at the top on top of our CAS platform.
That's correct.
Running in OpenStack either in virtual machines or on bare metal.
That's correct.
Awesome.
All of the above.
Okay. So what about, this is kind of a picture of what SUSE has to offer with different distributions of different layers of our architecture. Over on let's start it with the SUSE OpenStack Cloud, which is our distribution for OpenStack. You can do infrastructure as a service and also private cloud. Then, as Mark was talking about in the middle there, we have our compute, storage, and networking, which is kind of our software-defined infrastructure that's driven by OpenStack. And then on the far side, we have like lifecycle management with our SUSE Manager that allows you to take care of the Linux distribution and keep it updated and patched.
Firmware updates.
And firmware as well. And then on that side, we have SUSE OpenStack Cloud Monitoring, which is Manasca. So that gives you the capability to monitor your OpenStack cloud with Manasca that's fully supported with the full support from SUSE from both the distro in the Linux distro and in the OpenStack cloud. Then as you move up, you see that we have Platform as a Service, which is a Cloud Foundry implementation. And this all can be put into an OpenStack cloud as well as the CAS Container as a Service platform, which gives you container deployments that the Cloud Foundry can consume. So what about the public clouds? What can we do with the public clouds?
So our deployment architecture, we actually are partnering with some public cloud providers that allow us to deploy this architecture there. So you can run multi-cloud, you can run private cloud, you can run public cloud, all on the same stack. So excellent flexibility in moving across to different environments.
Cool. So just to wrap it up, I mean, OpenStack can basically take care of container deployments. It can run bare metal or on VMs. Obviously, with a platform as a service offering like our cloud application program, it's basically a Cloud Foundry implementation. So that also can work directly on bare metal, or it can run through an OpenStack cloud. So you get the benefits of having a similar set of skills to set up your network, storage, and software-defined infrastructure, and be able to deploy different layers within a cloud that's existing. So that gives you the benefit of being able to have an existing cloud and deploy your applications and your different infrastructure components that you need, all within a standard set of supported infrastructure from SUSE. So is there anything else you'd like to add?
All good. I think it's a great vision, and we're proud of it.
So I guess the one thing that I want to encourage you is to come by our booth. We have demos of our monitoring software. We have demos of our SUSE OpenStack Cloud product. We also have demos of the cloud application platform, and you got to come by. Plus, we've got really good swag, and you'll have a great time. So come by and talk to us at our booth.
Come get the chameleons.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.